Hello again, everyone. This is Brian at Sonora Fly Company. This week we are going to be tying a black leech. It's a really good pattern. It only uses two materials. It's really simple, but we use a technique called creating a dubbing loop, and that's what I want to focus on today. It's a great tactic. I use it tying nymphs. I use it tying leeches, baitfish patterns, and this is a really simple, easy way to learn how to do it. So let's get started. In the vise, we are going to use a Firehole Sticks 523 balanced leech hook, size 8, and we're going to use slotted black tungsten beads, 4 millimeter, and we are going to use 8/0 Vivus thread, a little bit thicker in red, and that's pretty much because it's a little bit stronger, a little bit thicker, and it creates a dubbing loop a little bit better than 10/0 does. I tend to break 10/0 a lot doing this, so we'll go ahead and start. Lay a thread base down. Clip off that tag. And as I mentioned, the two materials that we're going to use are Fly Fish Foods Junior Bruiser Blend in Midnight Fire and Iced Up in Midnight Fire. The primary material is going to be the Bruiser Blend. I'm going to take a pretty healthy chunk out. That looks pretty good. And I'll take just a little bit of the Iced Up, not too much. That looks pretty good. I'll just lay that on top, and then I'll just start pulling this apart and restacking it over and over again. That does two things at this point. Number one, it mixes those two materials up together, but it also lines up the fibers so that you get a nice bit of material to add to that dubbing loop, and you'll see that here in just a minute. So I kind of want all those tips lined up. That looks pretty good. And you can tie this pattern with just the Bruiser Blend. I'm just a big fan of adding Iced Up to a lot of different materials that I'm making dubbing loops with. I just always tend to do it. I like flashy flies quite a bit, so that looks pretty good. Okay, so this is going to be creating the dubbing loop. Actually, let's go ahead and get the tail tied on first. Get ahead of ourselves. You're going to take just a small amount of this material. Looks pretty good. We'll go ahead and lay that right on top of the hook and tie that in. I think a running theme with this fly is you don't want to overdo any of the materials on this fly. You want this to be a pretty sparse, wispy leech. And one nice thing about this material is if it's too long in any part, you can just pinch it off, both the Iced Up and the Bruiser Blend. It's really easy to do that, and that's one of the reasons I like tying with this stuff so much. And we might add a little bit more into that tail, not much. Looks good. Go ahead and clean this body up. You want that body to be nice and even. Okay, looks good. At this point, I'm going to pull out a pretty decent 4 or 5 inch chunk of thread, and I'm going to take my wax, go and wax that side up, and I'm going to use just a simple dubbing loop tool. This is just one simple style, and you hook that thread. You bring your thread back up and over that hook shank. Go ahead and wrap it around your thread one time. And just take a few turns back on top of that thread. Looks great. So essentially you have two sides of this thread in a nice loop. If you separate them, you can add your material in there. So that's what we're going to do next. We're going to take that chunk of material, kind of create somewhat of a rectangle, and go ahead and you're just going to put it in between that thread running right down the center. And then at this point, I like to basically take my pinky and my ring finger on my left hand, keep a little bit of tension on that thread, and then use my index finger and my right hand to spread that out inside the loop. And once again here, I'm going to stress, get this really, really sparse. This can really bulk up fast on you. And, you know, the fly looks okay, but I just don't think they fish as well. I think that they're better off being nice and sparse. So work that down. Pulling extra out, no big thing. Okay, now you've got that running all the way down the length of that split thread. So I'm going to go ahead and give this dubbing loop tool a few spins just to tighten up that thread, and then I'll usually lay it over my finger and give that a spin like that a couple times. That wax really helps. That should bind that in. The problem is now you need to brush this out. So I use a Stonfo dubbing brush, and I start working up that dubbing loop and back down it. Really brushing those fibers out. That looks great. So just wrap a few down there to get this started at the right spot. You want to start right at the back there. And just kind of keep those fibers stroked backwards as you palmer this. This is called palmering, as you wind materials forward on a fly body. Palmer that forward. And for the third time, don't get these wraps too close together. Sparse is the name of the game. So keep advancing forward at a pretty decent clip. Okay, looks good. Let me get one more on there. Great. Now you want to try to split those fibers when you capture that so you don't trap any fibers down. 3 turns, a few hard turns, tight wraps, clip that excess off. And you'll notice this with me, I always like making hot spot collars, thread collars, so that's what this red thread is for right here. So go ahead and do that. And you'll notice that this 8/0 thread bulks up on these collars a lot faster than the 10/0, so don't overdo it with 8/0. I'll put a little bit of Loctite on there. Give it a few turns, maybe a 4-turn whip finish. Looks great. Final step, you're going to take that comb, you're going to brush this baby out one more time. And I like to take a look at the length of the fibers and pinch some of those longer fibers off. That looks really, really good. All right, there you have it. Nice little leech. You can fish that under an indicator. You can use that as a point fly on a Euro rig. You can strip it in a lake. Super useful pattern, really easy to tie, and utilizes the dubbing loop in 2 materials. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed it. You can pick up all these materials at the shop, downtown Sonora, 78 South Washington Street. And looking forward to seeing you guys this Thursday, and we'll see you again next week. Thanks so much.